On this episode of the Star Wars Time Show, Matt is flying solo due to young Nick cruising the galaxy. Fear not, though, before he has to undergo hours of colonoscopy prep, Matt is here to break down the latest episode of Alien Earth, aka Metamorphosis. Stay tuned to hear what he thought about the episode and where he thinks the main plot is going. He'll also weigh in on the idea of Palpatine and Xenomorphs and how the Sith Lord would view their potential or the threat they may offer. Of course, he'll end the show with Question of the Week responses and the latest round of Top 5 Star Wars Fan Artist features. Punch it, Chewie.
Hey now, everybody! Look who it is. It's the bearded old guy that screams at clouds all day. Welcome back. I know this is an abnormal live for us here at the SWTS, so how's it going there, Tavin? Too Cool Right up there in the vertical stream. Good to see you. We usually do this stuff 5:30 p. East, as close as we can get on Wednesdays, but as we explained last week, young Nick is gallivanting across the galaxy. I'm preparing for a colonoscopy tomorrow, so later today I'm going to have a super colon blow. Therefore, I'm like, you know what? I still want to talk about Alien Earth Episode 3 Metamorphosis and, a little Star Wars stuff. It is the Star Wars Time Show after all, so we are going to have a crossover segment. So if you are new here, last week we decided, since there's really nothing going on in Star Wars worth talking about, at least concretely, that we were going to pivot and cover Alien Earth. So last week we broke down the premiere episodes, and today I'm here to break down episode 3 that was titled Metamorphosis. But as we promised last week, we're always going to have a crossover segment, okay? Star Wars time. There's always time for it. So there's always going to be some Star Wars talk on the show, even when we're breaking down Alien Earth. So this week, our crossover segment is going to be a fun one. We're going to kind of just briefly debate how Palpatine would approach the Xenomorphs. Would he consider them perfect weapons? Would he consider them blasphemous or something that he needed to vanquish? So that's going to be this week's crossover. Last week, we kind of talked about certain Star Wars creatures or beasts that could take on Xenomorphs or queens or facehuggers, stuff like that. So tune into last week's episode if you are interested in that. All right, no problem, Tavin. That's how we roll over here. Maybe Tavin TCR to shorten it. Good to see you. Yeah, League knows what's coming. She's in the live stream. She's got her little poop emojis out there. So getting excited. League, the drinking the magic potion commences around 5 o'clock today. But today is all liquid, no solids. So the reason I'm doing the show a bit early, because like I said, I'm going to be doing a lot of meditation on the porcelain throne later today. All right. But I'm still doing a full show, even though it's just me. That's how I roll. I'm got the sickness. Nick does not. He's very competent at letting things go when I take a break or whatever. So I can't do it. I'm addicted to doing this stuff, even though our channel's tiny and we barely get any viewers. I just feel the need to vomit up my thoughts about science fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, you name it. It's just in my soul. League let me know here that drinking the juice is no joke. I've only done a colonoscopy, it was probably 20 years ago. So this is going to be exciting. The prep, I don't think is going to bother me as much. What I'm concerned about is bad news tomorrow after the scope. This stuff kind of runs in the family. I've always taken fiber to kind of loosen things up because I used to bleed a lot down there. So who knows what's going on? Hoping for the best, prepared for the worst though, because that's how I roll. The anesthesia will be fun. I think it's a lot of times it's Dilaudid and some hardcore Viking, and who knows. But that's tomorrow, so wish me luck getting the old plumbing scoped out. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, League. Speaking of Mike and League, I appreciate you two kind of coming along for the ride with me today as long as you can. I know this is literally smack dab in the middle of everyone's day. Luckily, I'm off the next few weeks, so I have this ability. But it's good to see you two in there. I saw everyone in our Discord. We do have an open Discord. Just check the link here in the description of this live stream. But it was an active chat last night by a few of them for Alien Earth, so it's good to see them in here as well. And there's my man, Based and Brazen. I didn't know if he'd be making it. I know he's going through some rough times in his personal life, so good to see you there, Based. Wouldn't be a show without you. But Based is usually in there with our question of the week, our Ask Us Anything, which I'm about to do here next. So here we go, people. Like I said, solo show, but we're still going to run through the gamut. If you're new here, we always start with Ask Us Anything. Then we get into some pop culture talk. I usually review a recent movie that came out. Then our main segment, which in the past would be Star Wars related. Today, it's Alien Earth with a Star Wars crossover. And then, of course, we'll end with Question of the Week and the latest round of Top 5 Star Wars Fan Artist Features. All right, so thank you to my fam out there, the Discord homies. If you ever want to join, like I said, open link in the description of our YouTube videos. Or, like some of them, you could become a channel member and get special emojis or the Vader cat next to your name in YouTube chats. How do you like that? We do have a poll running right now in both of the live streams if you want to check that out and vote. Or if you've never joined a live stream, we're trying to make it a little more interactive for the young kids these days. So the poll this week, or if you're just listening, you can kind of play along in your head. The question I'm asking, would Palpatine see the hybrids as weapons or abominations? All right, so I'm talking about the Wendy's and stuff, not the Lost Boys, not Xenomorphs. You know what I mean? All right. So the poll is up in the live stream chat. If you ever want to join the live stream, don't forget, they're usually going to be on Wednesdays. I guess that's a good time to talk about that. We are going to have a schedule change next week. It's not my preference, but I do prefer doing the show with young Nick or at least another co-host while I have diarrhea of the mouth. It's always way more fun to talk about these things, break down episodes with another person to kind of get new ideas and to validate my own dumb ideas. So young Nick got a new job. It's a job he's been wanting to get, so I'm happy for him. He's going to be working for SXSW, if you know what that is, South by Southwest. But that's going to require him to work in office. So our show days are still going to remain for now on Wednesdays, but it's looking like I'm probably going to start kicking things off solo, kind of like I'm doing now, just to get all my words out. I do it all the time anyways and step all over young Nick during the first 20, 30 minutes of the show, so it's not a big deal. But next week, schedule changed, still doing Wednesday lives, but we're going to be moving it to 7:30 p. East for the start. And it'll probably be me solely for that first half hour. Then around 8 o'clock East, Nick will come in and we'll get into the main segment, breaking down Alien Earth Episode 4. And that's really the cadence moving forward until Nick kind of figures out a schedule, if there's any pockets in there where he could get away, but it is not looking like it. And I don't feel like moving the show to Fridays. So here we are. So the show moving forward is moving into quasi prime time. I'm not a huge fan because I lose a night with the family, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. I'll just hang out with them a bit more before the show starts at 7:30. So keep your eyes on the socials for all the announcements next week. Those should be going out Monday, maybe Tuesday, just to let everyone know. Remind everyone we're moving to 7:30 p. for the live. All right, that's enough yapping about dumb stuff. Let's go ahead and get into Ask Us Anything. That's right. Every week we solicit questions from the fans on our social networks. So make sure you're following us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, our Discord. The question goes there. You just got to be present and answer it. All right. So here we go. First up, coming from my man Baron's Black Series. So, Gina Carano won her case. Great. Doesn't mean Disney has to use her. Still thinks she caused herself post by opening her MAGA mouth. I guess I'm asking what you think of the results and stuff. So Spencer's asking what I think about Gino Carano getting a settlement with Disney, and honestly, it's nothing I think a lot about. Gina's Gina. I believe companies do have the right to kind of do what they want with their employees, as long as it falls within the company bylaws, policies, whatever you want to say it. So if they felt she was popping off and they didn't like it, then that was in their right to let her go. I'm sure they settled just to kind of put this thing to bed, but I do not see this leading to Cara Dune coming back to the Mandoverse era of shows. Typically, when you get let go and then you sue the company is more than likely not going to bring you back into the fold and allow you to kind of live the life you used to live. So good for Gina and winning whatever she won. But outside of that, I don't think, for those fans out there, those Star Wars fans, that this is going to lead to a resurrection of the Cara Dune character. I'm pretty sure that ship has sailed, as they like to say. All right, so that's that on that one. Take it to the bank. Gina will not be working with Disney, even though she probably made a couple million off of the lawsuit. All right, next question here coming from our longtime fan, Scion XTC. He's saying, you just won the lottery. What are you doing next? Well, I guess the first thing I would do is try to make my winning as private as possible. I would not let for sure the media know. I don't know if you have to. I know certain states you kind of have to like say, hey, I won. But if I could, I would try to make my winnings as private as possible to kind of keep the leeches at bay. I would immediately look to invest it in something very safe, but that gives me I would say a 4 to 6% return, so interest. That way I can start kind of compounding that immediately and hopefully live for generations, or generations of my family can just live off of that or the interest itself. I would retire, clearly, my immediate family, my wife. I would make sure my kid is going whatever school she wanted to go to, be it a private school or eventually college. And then I would probably move, or at least start buying property in places I've always wanted to live. I would buy some coastal property, definitely on the East Coast, probably in the Rehoboth area, Bethany Beach, Dewey, that type of spot. Might grab something out in Colorado, go skiing, that type of setup. And then I'd probably do something out west as well. I don't know, maybe buy an island. Who knows? I would just want to I would want to build a compound with all the people that I want to be around. Okay, so people I actually want to talk to and be with. That doesn't mean extended family. It could be family or friends, but it'd be a compound. We'd have everything we want on it. We'd have a golf course. We'd have a big-ass movie theater, go-karts, you name it. It would be like a paradise island for adults that never grew up. And it's always nice to think about winning the lottery, right? I mean, I wouldn't say I'm struggling in life, but I do still have to work a job and work most days, and sometimes I don't want to do what I do. So it'd be nice to kind of alleviate myself of those concerns, knowing I had a ton of cash. Depending on how big the lottery was or the winnings were, I would probably also look to getting into either buying some form of like an arena, something like the Sphere, or getting into sports ownership, like sports team ownership. Maybe buy the Steelers from the Rooneys and actually manage it properly and not be idiots and let Mike Tomlin coach for 2 decades without really producing anything outside of his first 5 years or so. Base is asking, you'd have a bunker for the fans to live in? Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, we could have a little SWTS compound within the compound, you know what I mean? League bringing up a point, no European land, Italy, just the food alone is worth it. Yeah, I probably, especially the way the things are getting over in America these days, that might not be a bad idea to have kind of a foreign destination to head to. I mean, Thailand looked fun from the White Lotus. Italy, like League saying, yeah, the food would be worth it. Not sure if I'd want to live there. Heard it gets super hot. Dense population. Maybe Japan, something like that. Hell, I would just, why not like just fly around or let's get really kind of futuristic. I would like to just be kind of in like a floating pod that orbits Earth. So I'm up in space away from all you people, away from all the natural disasters, just living my best life, if you will. All right. That's a good one there from Scion. Winning the lottery, what you doing next? That's right, Kramer. I'm glad you're watching it here. Kramer's in the stream here. He's saying, speaking of Japan, Shogun is badass. Yes, that is one of the best TV shows I've seen in the past few years. All right, next question coming from Tong Wars. Prediction on how Ahsoka dies. Ooh, that's a good one. That is a good one, and I guess Tong is assuming we are going to see her die on screen, which means it could be coming up here in Ahsoka Season 2, which very likely may hit in 2026. Or possibly, if we ever get there, to Dave Filoni's crossover movie, which is not The Mandalorian Grogu, that's coming out May of 2026. So let's say it's in Ahsoka Season 2. That's the last season. We need to wrap it up. We need to get the characters all back in the same galaxy. I could see Ahsoka sacrificing herself to ensure Sabine and whatever information they need or they need to keep on Peridia, maybe it's the Mortis gods, maybe it's Abeloth, she will die ensuring that none of the bad juju from Peridia makes it back to the known galaxy. And that would be in a sacrificial situation. And it's probably going to be for Sabine. To me, I think it's very likely that just Sabine makes it back to the known galaxy to help Ezra and the New Republic take on Thrawn and whatever threats are coming, possibly Abeloth, as we're going to believe in that from the Mortis God tease at the end of Season 1. So yeah, I think Ahsoka's death ultimately is from a point of sacrifice. I don't know if it's going to be as blatant as Obi-Wan, literally just standing there saying, hey, please kill me because I know I can do more as his Force spirit. But I just, if Ahsoka doesn't die a peaceful death, like on her own and just kind of fade like Yoda did, to me, it's going to be from a point of giving herself over to the greater good. Kind of like Luke did, even though we all kind of agree that Luke's death was silly. I mean, he died from over-forcing, but the same concept there, the mantra is there. He did it to, he sacrificed his essence for Rey, his sister, and the Resistance, and it cost him his life. Hopefully, Ahsoka doesn't force herself to death, because I do think that's kind of silly. But I do believe it will be in service. Her death will be in service of saving a friend, another Force user, or just the galaxy itself. All right, and League saying Ahsoka is Filoni's baby. She is not dying. That could be very true. Yeah, that's what based in brazen, some form of self-sacrifice. That's what I think as well. Kramer saying, I bet Season 2 will go right into Mando and Grogu. Nah, Kramer, I actually think Mando and Grogu is going to air before Season 2 of Ahsoka. I could see Ahsoka Season 2 coming out end of summer or fall of 26, because they're still shooting it right now, which means they're going to need at least 8 months or so to do post. So I think Mando and Grogu, that comes out May 26. We know that's a real thing. It's actually happening. We're going to get a Star Wars movie in 2026 in theaters, and it's going to feature Mandalorian Grogu doing who knows what for the New Republic at the behest of Sigourney Weaver's character, who I already forget her name, but we'll get back to that at some other day. But yeah. So the interesting thing will be, will Mando and Grogu touch on any of the events from Ahsoka Season 1, such as them leaving the galaxy and going to Peridia, or Ezra coming back from being lost in that galaxy for many, many years. Or, I don't know, the fact that Grand Admiral Thrawn has returned and is hovering the Chimera above Dathomir with a bunch of zombie Night Sisters in their caskets. So you would hope Mando and Grogu touches on that. But we also watched Ahsoka Season 1, where it was essentially Star Wars Rebels live action, and they completely left out Zeb. So those types of narrative choices are made all the time by Dave and company over there at Lucasfilm. So you just never know. You never know. We all sit here as fans, and some of it is armchair, Monday morning quarterback type of stuff. But it does seem more often than not that the creators at Lucasfilm, even Dave himself, the George Lucas's chosen protege, tends to want to get a little too cute versus just, yeah, this makes sense. The fans want it. The fans can see it. They're stitching it together. Let's just run with it. But no, that's not how we roll at Lucasfilm anymore. All right, next question here, and Ask Us Anything. Coming from League, are you and the Padawan going to see K-pop Demon Hunters in theaters this weekend? League, I'll tell you what. I've tried everything to convince my little 9-year-old that K-pop is something worth watching, and she rebuts me at every turn. I think it's because one of her neighborhood friends is such a fan, and it almost annoys her that every time they hang out, they're more or less talking about K-pop or watching it or singing it. So I think that's why she hates it. But she can't stand it. Even my next door neighbor, they got a little 5-year-old, and we're walking to the bus. It's her first time going to kindergarten. She's all jazzed, and she's singing K-pop songs from K-pop Demon Hunters. So I don't think we're going to make it out in theaters, mostly because the little one doesn't care to see it. I still have not watched it myself, even though young Nick said it is worth checking out, even if you're an old man that screams at clouds. So unfortunately, no K-pop this week. I don't even know if I'm going to get to a movie this week, because tomorrow is Butt Blast Day, or we're going to snake out my I guess my second input. I'm not a female, and we'll see how I feel. But I don't even know if anything's coming out this week. Any new releases worth seeing tomorrow? I can't remember. I haven't looked yet, so who knows? But no, I can tell you, no K-pop for sure. All right, here we go. Another question coming in from Kramer. Do you think we will see a Queen Xenomorph this season? All right, so I think he's asking about Alien Earth. No, I don't. I don't see one unless Kirsch gets up to some crazy experiment. Because I'll tell you what, when I get into my breakdown of Metamorphosis, I'm definitely getting some David the Creator vibes coming from Kirsch after this week's episode, and seeing him in the lab, and how he's kind of, yeah, sure, he's doing it for Prodigy, but you can tell he's kind of checking his own boxes of curiosity in that lab. And I'm not sure if he was told to do what he did at the end of the episode or not with Hermit's lungs. So no, just to answer Kramer's questions, I do not think we're going to see a queen in Alien Earth. I don't know how they can get there unless the show is going to have a longer time frame to be covered than we think, because it seems as of right now, episodes 1, 2, and 3 have more or less covered, outside of the flashback to the kids being turned into Wendy and the Lost Boys. It seems like it's only covered a couple days, which could change, but it seems like this show's pace is going to be pretty quick. So I'm not sure Kirsch or Prodigy, or even if Wayland had some data on queens or how to make them, if that would happen. And then Kramer following up, he's always got to get a football question in, which I love. Thoughts on the whole Michigan football ordeal? Kramer, doesn't really surprise me. The NCAA's kind of been a joke for years. It's funny that Ohio State essentially had to give up Jim Tressel and a bunch of games due to kids getting tattoos in exchange for memorabilia. It was such a different era back then. And then Michigan literally being caught cheating, stealing signs, all that fun stuff. stealing signs illegally. Like I get it, you can steal signs, it's a part of football, but literally sending guys to stadiums and marking things out, it was shady. And the fact that they more or less got a slap in the wrist, no postseason ban, which means that it's not going to hurt the recruiting. The one thing I'm not entirely sure on is the financial penalty and if that applies to nil. So if the financial penalty applies to nil and language applies to the amount of money they can kind of pay their players, then that might help a bit because, these days it's all about pay to play at top tier programs. I'm an Ohio State fan. We won a title last year with not the highest paid roster, but I would think it's definitely top 10. So if Michigan does have some money issues when it comes to nil and what they can pay their players, then okay. But otherwise, it's a nothing burger. It's silly. I mean, the NCAA is like, well, not much we can do. Everyone that was involved in all this cheating and breaking the rules, they've all left. So we're not going to punish the current organization, which seems cool, but I don't know. It's the NCAA, so what can you expect? You know what I mean? What can you really expect from them? They're kind of a useless organization anyways. All right, and that's it for Ask Us Anything. So again, if you want to get involved, don't forget every week, typically beginning on Mondays, sometimes on Tuesday, maybe even on Wednesday, I'll put out the prompt to solicit questions for you to ask us. Although these days I think we're going to go back to AMAs because with the new schedule change, I think I'm going to be the one mostly doing the questions. So ask me anything. All right, so let's go ahead and move over into a little bit of pop culture talk. We do it every week. We typically like to, talk about new movies, new TV shows, new video games. Just real brief. It's not a long segment. But this week, what I'm talking about is Nobody 2. That's right. Better Call Saul. Bob Odenkirk's got a sequel in theaters. I'm not sure if anyone checked out Nobody, the original, because I think it kind of came out during the pandemic era of film. But it's good. I mean, I love Bob. I mean, Bob started as a comedian, comedy writer, sketch artist, that type of thing. And then we all kind of fall in love with him, or most of us started to realize, like, holy shit, this guy's he's a hell of an actor too, especially when it comes to drama. When we first saw him in Breaking Bad, and he was so great in that he got his character's own show in Better Call Saul, which was also excellent. So I've been a huge fan of Bob's at least since Breaking Bad. So when Nobody came out, I was like, yeah, I'll check it out, even though it's an old guy essentially fighting like John Wick, and it's good. I mean, it's good. It is a silly concept on paper, but it kind of works the way Nobody as a franchise has been set up. So naturally, I was excited to go check out the sequel. Nobody 2 came out last week, and this time, the cat's kind of out of the bag with his family. They all know that the dad's got a little bit of a mean streak, and he knows how to handle himself, and might be able to off people just with his bare hands. And Bob's kind of feeling left out from the family. Not Bob, his character Hutch. So they decide to go on a family vacation to a place he used to go to as a kid when his goofy dad took him and his stepbrother. And hey, listen, it's a fun action movie. I actually think I enjoy Nobody 2 more than Nobody 1. Nobody 2 definitely leans more into the comedic side of having an older man beat the hell out of multiple younger, beefy-looking dudes at a time. The family is, like I said, teased, gets a bit more involved, so that adds some new hijinks to it. I kind of like how it opens with the end, and then you learn how we started. It's one of those types of narrative retellings. So it's fun. I really enjoyed Nobody 2. If there's nothing you want to see this week in theaters, League, K-pop, you might want to check it out if you like action movies. It's not, I would even say, even though, clearly Hutch is an older man, as weird as this sounds, it's the action is not as over the top as like a John Wick, especially John Wick 4, where it's nothing but action beats for almost 3 hours straight. It's fun. I mean, Nobody 2 is a fun movie, worth checking out in theaters. I'm sure it'll be hitting streamers soon. So you could find worse things to do with your time than checking out Nobody 2. So I definitely recommend that one for show. All right. So I guess it is time. Let me itch my bald head for a little Alien Earth Episode 3 Metamorphosis breakdown. So if you're new here, I'll kind of give my review to kick things off, and then we'll just start diving into the episode. Clearly, there's going to be spoilers for Alien Earth Episode 3, so spoilers, 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 if you know what I mean. Let me get a swig. All right, spoilers are out there. Here we go. I'm going to start a little slideshow. That way I don't have to worry about the changing screens. So we're just going to have some slides or stills from episode 3 scrolling as I'm yapping about it. How's that sound? All right, here we go. Let's see if it actually works. Go, baby, go. We're on a 5 count. Yay, it worked. Check that out. All right, hot sauce coming in. Why do we think Wendy can sense the aliens? You know what? Why not start with that? I'll even get there before I get into my review. This is interesting. I don't know, hot sauce. I mean, I just watched the episode a couple hours ago, so I'm still kind of stewing on this thing. But I definitely wrote that down as I was watching. Like, what's going on here? Because even in episode 2, when they broke the blue barrier and the Xenomorph started running towards the nest, it did seem like Wendy could sense it before anyone else. And I chalked it up to, I think she just has super hearing and she could hear the screams and whatnot. But now that we've gotten into episode 3 here, and specifically the end of the episode, as Kirsch is doing the experiments and kind of cutting into the eggs, and the egg is hatching, he takes out the face hugger and he dissects that and takes out the I love seeing this. And it's the first time we've ever seen the chest burster in its tadpole form. That was pretty neat. But it did seem, as soon as those experiments started, that Wendy was awakening from her coma, if we will. But what's weird is, like, to me, it didn't seem like she was actually awake in the present. She wasn't actually roaming the halls of Neverland. She wasn't actually in the lab. Because, I mean, let's be real. She's Wendy. She's a high-value asset for this company. So she walks into that lab, unbeknownst to Kirsch and the other Lost Boys, and falls over. They're going to turn around and be like, what the hell was that? So it's like, was she dreaming this? Was she projecting a vision of herself walking into the lab? Because the very last shot, we see her seemingly laying in a dorm room. It's definitely not the lab. It's got a Prodigy logo on the floor. But I'm with you, Hot Sauce. I'm with the internet there, thinking there is some connection. Hot Sauce saying, do we think her child self is actually a clone of Ripley? Well, you got to understand, this show is set 2 years before the events of Aliens, so Ripley isn't even that clone thing we see in Alien Resurrection that I believe Weyland-Yutani created. So I don't think she has any relation to Ripley, because Ripley is just a regular gal about to head off on her mission on the Nostromo 2 years into the future from when this show is set. So I don't know if in Boy Cavalier, he seems to not even have any understanding of the bioweapons that Weyland-Yutani went and searched for 65 years prior to this show's setting. So I don't think Boy Cavalier would have known to use alien DNA in his hybrids. So I don't know why Wendy has this connection. I mean, one theory you could think is behind those closed doors, when she somehow literally beat a Xeno in hand-to-hand combat, maybe there was some form of transfer there. I don't know. But I am with everyone on this thought that Wendy has some sort of connection to the aliens. All right. Is it a physical link that she gained after the fight? Is it something similar that might have happened with Moro? Because remember in the premiere, Moro could be around the Xeno without it wanting to rip him to shreds. He understood the idea of it being able to smell fear. So is it something that these... I know Moro's a cyborg. He's not a full-on hybrid. But is it something with these people that have machine parts? Are they able to, I don't know, somehow connect to these organisms? Or is it like Hot Sauce is hinting at? I mean, I don't think it's Ripley clone, but whatever Prodigy is using to create these hybrids, is there something in the build process that has given them, Wendy in particular, some form of connection to alien species? It seems very unlikely unless Boy knew about it. So it's a tough one, guys. I get it. Like, I'm with you. It definitely seems like subconsciously Wendy can feel, at least through the Force. There's a Star Wars tie for you. Through the Force, these aliens. I guess I'll just field questions from the live stream for now. Then I'll get into my review. So Kramer's saying, why was the chest burster tadpole going in the hermit's lung? Well, here's the deal, Kramer. The chest burster in that stage of its life, because you got to understand, these are parasites. They start in an egg form. Then you have the face hugger. The face hugger implants the chest burster. The chest burster incubates in a host, pops out, and becomes a full adult xenomorph. So I think what the tadpole is ultimately doing is its job is to embed itself into organic material so it can gestate and grow and take on traits of its host to become its full xeno form. So I think Kirsch, and this is another question I want to throw at all of you, did Kirsch do that on his own? Did Boy Cavalier direct him to do that? Or is this Kirsch kind of channeling his inner David? Because if you remember David, I mean, David was just like Kirsch. He's a full synthetic. But David clearly went off the rails. I mean, even in Prometheus, he was starting to do stuff that he was not programmed to. And I actually went back and watched Covenant last night, and David fully starts to believe that he's a god and he's a creator and he's better than humans, and he kind of hates humans and wants to wipe them out. And that's why he created the Xenomorphs, to unleash them on the galaxy so they could take it over and kind of burn it down. So is Kirsch kind of doing some of David's experiments now with this ultimate bioweapon, this ultimate predator? It looks like it. So the chest burster burrowing into the lung, that's just what it's designed to do. It's designed to burrow into living organic matter, to gestate, to then become its full form. I think the bigger question, the deeper question is that all Kirsch is doing? Or is this like Prodigy telling him to conduct this type of experiment? So that's going to be interesting to see going forward. And League's saying, isn't the title of the episode called something like New Power? It's called Metamorphosis, League. The title of this episode was called Metamorphosis. So, yeah, I mean, clearly Metamorphosis can explain the Xenomorph from start to finish, because that's what it does. It metamorphosizes from an egg all the way to a perfected killing machine. But are we seeing a metamorphosis with the hybrids, in particular Wendy? You know, did she gain new abilities by fighting this or interacting with the Xenomorph? Who knows? But it's all interesting stuff to think about. So thank you for those early questions to kind of keep things going here. I'm going to change this to every 10 seconds. That's getting a little annoying. All right, so I guess I'll kind of just kick into my review real quick of the episode. Then I'll start diving into some of the things that I kind of picked up on. And again, if you're in the live stream, I love the questions. Keep them coming. That kind of helps to keep the flow moving, especially when I'm by myself and I can only hear the voices in my head. Hey, right there, if you're on the stream, on the screen, check that out, little Easter egg. You had that little mini loader. That's definitely a callback to the Aliens loader that Ripley fights the Queen in. I kind of dug that, so wanted to get that in there. But anyways, my quick review on this episode, Alien Earth Episode 3, Metamorphosis. I still think I'm really enjoying the series. I still think the way they're kind of dripping out the plot, I'm digging that. It's revealing parts of the mystery while building new mysteries. I think the biggest one for me is going to be Kirsch and Morrow. Like what is Kirsch's ultimate objective in the lab? Is he only going to do what Boy Cavalier wants? Is he legitimately just testing to find how he can turn these things into bioweapons for his master, his corporate master and prodigy? Or is he kind of like David? Is there any David in him? I mean, you got to wonder, is Kirsch because Wayland Yutani, I believe they're the ones, or Wayland at least, if we believe Prometheus. Wayland is the company that invented the androids, the synthetics. David was the first one. So if that's the case, is Kirsch an actual Wayland Yutani product? Does he have any of David Prime's programming? So I'm very interested to kind of see where Kirsch goes with his scientist goggles on. What is he doing? Is it David Curiosity? Is he going to see the power in the Xeno and try to unleash it upon the organics like David wanted to? I don't know. That's interesting. And then Morrow, same thing. Like he said a line there, like he knows his Earth family is gone. He's been gone for 65 years. He doesn't really feel like a human anymore. And he says to Yutani, at least a granddaughter of Yutani, like, hey, these species, these specimens, these xenomorphs, they are my life now. So I am going to go get them back. So that's why I said, coming out of this episode, Kirsch and Morrow are probably the most intriguing characters to me, because I think their true intentions are still a bit murky, if you know what I mean. So I like the tone of Alien Earth still, especially this episode. I like kind of like the slow drip. I think the show looks, again, like it's a film production. It looks awesome. It sounds awesome. The effects are great. As Kramer's bringing up here in the live stream chat, I do. I think the action scene between Wendy and the Xeno was awesome. I mean, it was impressive. I like that whole exchange. You got some callback to it, by having Joe/Hermit literally cocooned, like we saw the aliens doing, in particular in Aliens. I mean, Newt, she was cocooned. I always forget his name. It was a guy that played Reese in Terminator, but I forget his name in Aliens. But he's like one of the only other characters that survived Aliens and eventually dies before Alien 3. But we kind of got that callback, so there was some cool Easter eggs and callbacks in there. But the fight itself, like Kramer's saying, was awesome. I don't think we've ever seen an organic, Ripley fought a queen, I guess hand to hand, but she used literally a mech suit, if you will, so it wasn't true hand to hand. I know Bishop tried to tussle with the queen once, and he got ripped in half. So I think we can say for sure we've never seen any single species of anything, be it an android or a human, go toe-to-toe with a xenomorph and win in physical combat, like zero weapons. And that's exactly what Wendy did. I mean, the fact that she takes that meat hook and lures, or essentially fish hooks, the Xeno's mini mouth, and it has enough strength to wrangle it into that room, the closed door room. And then, behind closed doors, we don't really see what happens, but she didn't have any weapons besides a knife. She is able to, without burning her arms off or really burning much of her body. She didn't have a lot of physical injuries. I know they said her body got jacked, but we just saw another callback, some of her white goo coming down from her head. So she was able to kill that xenomorph, decapitate it without burning to bits, to nothing. So very impressive there. And it just goes to show you that these hybrids are, they probably would if they were allowed to keep going. Obviously, we know hybrids, for whatever reason, more than likely corporate sabotage, don't end up persisting through the Alien franchise, because by the time 2 years later in Alien, there's no hybrids. There's no hybrids in Aliens. There's no hybrids in Alien 3. It seems that, and this is just me speculating here, and we kind of did this last week, it seems to me that Wayland Yutani is going to ensure the wipeout of Prodigy as a corporation by the end of this series. and they're either going to bury the hybrid technology or keep it out of existence because maybe they saw the potential dangers of dumping human conscious into a synthetic body. Because by the time we get to Aliens, and Aliens 3, like I said, there are no hybrids. It's just synthetics like Bishop. In fact, I don't even think they're cyborgs. So it clearly Weyland-Yutani is going to win these corporate wars of the galaxy, and it seems they're going to ensure that their way of being immortal, the synthetics, is going to be the only way here. League in the chat saying Wendy is the only one who's using her strength appropriately. Yes. And I'm glad League brings that up. I did write in my notes. I really do enjoy how the hybrids, the Lost Boys and Wendy's are being portrayed. You have to remember, they are kids. They're children minds dumped into adult bodies. And I really found the scene between Smee and Slightly in the egg room to be a perfect example of what it would be like to take a child's mind and dump it into an adult body and then send them into a scenario where a ship crash lands and it has aliens on it. I mean, they're just sitting around like, bro, did you see that, bro? I mean, they had a full-on bro off. And then at one point, I think Slightly says fuck, and Smee says shit, and he's like, damn, you said fuck. And he's like, yeah, you said shit. So it's like little kids on a playground being very excited about the situation they're in that they probably shouldn't be in. So I'm really appreciating that dynamic of this show, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess Curly a little bit. Hopefully everyone picked up on that. Curly clearly is starting to, I don't want to say self-think because all the hybrids can self-think, but she's starting to kind of have her own plans that are beyond just being a hybrid, a prototype. I mean, that scene with Boy Cavalier was very interesting and kind of deep if you think about it. She's more or less saying, hey, Wendy should not be number one. My dad used to always throw out the first pancake because they're typically not the best. I'm the best. I'm going to be the one that you envisioned. I'll be smarter than you, in fact. So Curly, to me, is going to be a problem. I think she's going to be a problem for Wendy and possibly for Prodigy as a corporate entity. You know, maybe she's the one that kind of sells them out and goes over to Weyland. Maybe she's the one that helps Morrow get into Prodigy, although it's looking like Slightly is going to be his in. Now that we know that Morrow implanted some form of cybernetic comms device into his neck. League asking the question is, how is the show going to show how Weyland wins the corporate war? I honestly, League, I think it's going to be a case of tactical nuking New Siam and completely taking out that part of Earth. Nuking Neverland, his little island compound, taking out New Siam. I think Weyland definitely, it's going to be an explosive win, if you will. Okay, so overall review, I'm finding this show to be utterly fantastic. I still don't know how I missed watching it Tuesday night and had to watch it this morning. But we'll see. All right, some other things I wanted to talk about. We did get confirmation. I know last week we were trying to count on our fingers because we're not very smart around here at the SWTS. How many different aliens were on the Maginot besides the one we're familiar with, the Xenos? And it was now confirmed from Kirsch that there are 5 alien species that were brought back. And clearly Maginot lost containment, and that's why they ended up crash landing on Earth. So, what do I have here? Yeah, I guess I also wrote down, like, you can just see how Boy, as in the Boy Genius, Boy Cavalier, you can already see how he is sealing his fate and the fate of Prodigy and probably his hybrids immediately when he completely reverses all of his diverts all of his resources to these alien specimens versus keeping his eye on the prize, his eye on the goal, which was to create the hybrids and to perfect them to where not only kids could transfer over, but adults. That is what Prodigy existed for prior to him learning that Weyland-Yutani has trillions of dollars of R&D in bioweapons that just crash landed into his backyard. So I think this decision of his to pivot and go, hey, screw it, let's see what Weyland-Yutani was up to. We need to find out what the hell's going on. I think that seals his fate and the fate of Prodigy, and more than likely the hybrids. I guess one of the questions I had, and this is where I miss having a Nick here, so those of you who are listening, if you're at least caught up to me or live, I'm just wondering why the Xeno, towards the beginning of the episode, used Joe as bait. You know, he did the whole cocoon thing, and it's almost like he wanted Wendy to show up, maybe. And when she did, the Xeno didn't rush in to immediately kill her. He kind of stuck his head in. He was very curious. Then he walks away, gets on the roof, and it's not till she stabs him, and hey, we get the acid blood, another little Easter egg, that the Xeno gets a little upset and, you know, starts stabbing her brother in the lung, and then they get into their fight. But it's like, why did it use Joe as bait in the first place? Then when Wendy showed up, why did it just walk away? Was it just screwing with him, or does it go back to, is there something in Wendy's composition that these Xenos can sense? All right, what is that connection? And is it because she's a female? Maybe he thought he could use it to turn it into a queen. I have no idea, but I found that to be a very curious interaction with the Xenomorph, Hermit, and Wendy. But it does seem, and I kind of dig this, it does kind of seem like the Xenomorphs in general are intrigued by hybrids. You know, it's like clearly the eggs can sense organics versus non-organic, so you would think a fully grown Xenomorph also can pick up on, hey, I can't really use you, you know, and maybe that's why Morrow was not attacked. He's so full of cybernetic parts that his body is useless. It can't be used to turn into an incubator. So, you know, why screw with it? And the hybrid's kind of the same thing. Like it's almost like he was studying Wendy in a point. So, but there's an intrigue. I don't know. Maybe it's maybe it's something in their chemical makeup that smells familiar to a Xeno. There's something going on. You know, Hot Sauce is in here saying, you know, Wendy's got a bit of Xeno in her. And listen, it could be, but this is where this show and its apparent ignorance of Prometheus and Alien Covenant are going to make speculating very difficult, because Noah Hawley, the showrunner, more or less said, like, hey, I didn't really pay attention. I'm not worried about honoring anything that happened in Prometheus and Covenant in Alien Earth. I'm doing Alien Earth more so to honor Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3. So the Prime trilogy. So to me, that's him saying, like, I'm not necessarily respecting canon from Prometheus and Covenant. But Ridley Scott also made those movies, so you would think that they are canon still. And in Prometheus and Covenant, it is very clearly shown that David is the creator of the modern Xenomorph. Through his experimentations on Shaw and the engineers on their home planet, and all the fauna on the home planet of the engineers, that's how he perfected the egg to facehugger to burster to Xeno life cycle. He created the Xenomorphs. Those shows, I mean, Alien Covenant takes place, I believe, it's like 14 years prior to Alien Earth. So, how could Prodigy come in possession of Xeno DNA if the Xeno DNA wasn't even something that existed in the galaxy until the year 2104, I believe, is when Covenant takes place. So I'm not disagreeing with Hot Sauce. I'm just saying it would be nice to get from the creators like, hey, you know what? We are kind of honoring Prometheus and Covenant, or no, we've retconned everything that happened there, which is huge because Ridley Scott at one point in time was going to do a David trilogy. It has not been finished. We only have the first 2 movies, but at the end of Covenant, which I just rewatched, David literally has a colony ship in his possession with 2,000 colonists in stasis, and the female lead from that movie, who he literally calls his queen. So it's clear that he knows females and their reproductive systems. That's why he used Shaw to create the eggs in Covenant. So it seems Ridley Scott was going down a path at the end of Covenant that David was going to use, and I forget her damn name, but she was a Ripley-esque character in Covenant, the lead female. But she realizes right at the end that it's not Walter anymore. It is David as the synthetic, and he's captured, and he's about to do all sorts of experiments on her to probably turn her into a Xenomorph queen. Because, again, he only brought 2 embryos with him on that colony ship, 2 little facehugger embryos, so he's going to need more. Now, if you have 2,000 bodies and you can somehow turn that lead into a Xenomorph queen, there you go. Now he can seed the galaxy with his Xenomorphs to destroy humanity as he wanted to. So, yeah, hot sauce. Like I said, it does seem the hybrids may have Xeno sauce in them just based on how the Xeno reacts to them. But if that's the case, then we're more or less admitting that Alien Earth is completely retconning the events of Prometheus and Covenant, which, in my opinion, are major events for Ridley Scott's Alien franchise, because he made the damn movies and he wanted it to be canon. And to this day, he'll tell you David is the creator of the Xenomorph. So this is all fun stuff. I love speculating, but it's hard to speculate when you have existing canon that is more than likely being ignored in new canon. So I don't know where to go here. So is Earth retconning everything? Possibly. My co-host Nick last week, I think he had a really good point, and I'll touch on this too because I know Kramer brought it up. But if we think about the Maginot expedition was gone for 65 years. So it left before Prometheus, that expedition even happened. So there's a very good chance that during the 65 years the Maginot crew was on their mission, that Weyland could have phoned in after the events of Prometheus, even the events of Covenant, and be like, hey, on your way back, stop here. So I do think there is some wiggle room to still say that David created them, and then Weyland-Yutani came into possession of them by using Morrow's expedition to pick up the eggs they learned were created many years after the expedition even started. Where it gets weird, though, is Morrow specifically says when he's talking to, I think, Smee and Slightly, like, hey, we went to a moon and we found these eggs. And is that moon, is it LV-426? Is it the moon that we see the Nostromo crew go to in Alien that did have eggs that were on an engineer ship? Again, you got to think at this point in time that somehow David also was the one that sent that ship with eggs because he created them. So it gets weird. Like I said, it gets weird. I mean, you could argue Prometheus and Covenant canon also contradicts canon in Alien because of that derelict ship that had eggs on it. So how did eggs get on an engineer ship if the Xeno eggs did not exist until David went to the engineer planet, wiped them out, and then perfected the egg? All right. A lot of nerdy shit we're talking about here. None of it's real life, but hey, this is why we do what we do, right, people? Just to kind of speculate about this science fiction to see if we can solve the puzzle. So it would have been nice if Ridley Scott was able to finish his David trilogy. Then we probably would have even more answers on Genesis of Queens and how he may have seeded the galaxy with his eggs in the first place. But you never know. All right. So other things to discuss in this episode, we talked about Wendy fight and how impressive it was that she fought it one-on-one. I mean, that's huge. We've never seen that before. So what does that mean? Are the hybrids just that much more capable than Weyland-Yutani's synths? Or, as we're all thinking, does do these hybrids have some sauce in them that may not be from Earth? Talked about Smee and Slightly's very kid-like reaction, and how I really, like I said, I love how the Lost Boys are being portrayed. Nibs in particular, I mean, clearly Nibs is the one struggling the most with what they did to her, like taking her little kid self and putting her into an adult body, making her change her name. Like she's clearly shell-shocked. And speaking of Nibs, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, just like I believe Wendy was either projecting herself or having a vision, it seems Nibs was doing the same thing when she was staring at herself in the mirror. Because in both instances, they were walking in that corridor where we see Hazmat Guy. Hazmat Guy popped up 3 times this week. He popped up twice last week. And it's always when the tint of the picture kind of changes in Alien Earth. And it's always in that corridor in that Neverland lab. So was Nib really there, or was she envisioning herself kind of like I'm thinking Wendy was doing when she was envisioning herself being in the lab watching the facehugger being cut? And if so, what is the Hazmat Guy's significance? What is he spraying? What is that steam he's spraying everywhere? What's he trying to clean up? Is this hinting that these hybrids have visions from something from the past? You know, maybe Prodigy somehow already did have Xeno technology, and that's how they were able to create the hybrid and get them to work. So that's something to watch out for. I'm telling you, Hazmat Guy, we got to see his face this week. You'll see an image scrolling through the slideshow in this live stream if you're watching. It was like, what's the significance of Hazmat Guy? Don't sleep on him. He means something. I think he's either showing us that the hybrids are seeing stuff from the past, or maybe in their own minds, or it's a memory from the past. I don't know. But the fact that they keep going to this dude in the green hazmat who seems to be almost making the environment feel more alien-like with all the steam, I think that means something. I kind of liked. Listen, Morrow to me is a bad guy. He's kind of gray. I don't know if he's full on bad. He's definitely gray. He went through some shit over those 65 years. I think that's fair enough to say. Clearly having Mother tell him what to do. It only matters, only sacrifice everything for the corporation, essentially. Let all the humans, pure humans, die. Save yourself. All that matters is the mission and the data. So I kind of dug seeing him upload the Maginot data to his body. And just how quickly he was able to determine that the kids, the Lost Boys, are hybrids. I mean, the fact that he was at that club and on the internet, and he easily put together, like, okay, yeah, the triumvirate became the Fab Five or whatever, reading about how Boy Genius kind of changed the dynamics on Earth and in the galaxy with the corporations, and he deduced, like, yeah, he's making hybrids. So I like the character, even though he's more than likely one of the antagonists. I'm digging Morrow and just the little drips of lore we're getting from him. I think we're going to get a lot of the answers we are searching for, at least the deep stuff, from Morrow, because he's the one that was on the 65-year mission. He's the one that was on the moon where they found these alien species. He's the one that survived the crash. I mean, who knows how long they were dealing with the outbreak on the ship. 65 years is a long time to kind of be away, even with cryo sleep. So keep your eye on Morrow. I talked about seeing the mini loader and how that's a callback to Ripley's loader from Aliens. Oh, here's another question. Again, I wish I had a co-host here, so if anyone's listening. You know what, League? League is asking here in the live stream chat, wonder if Ridley has opinions on the show and if he would say anything publicly. I've heard that Ridley loves the show and is fully signed off on what Noah Hawley has done, at least in terms of the narrative. So there is that. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to kind of get like, hey, yeah, this is this and this is that. But, these types, these creatives, very rarely will they just ever spell out, no, this is what I meant. Because they're playing nice, they don't want to upset anyone, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I think we'll have to see what's going on there. Okay, I got a little screen glitch here. Let me fix that on. There we go. So one thing I found to be curious with Kirsch again, like how did he know? He specifically explains to Boy Cavalier when Boy shows up in the lab and almost gets face hugged. He's like, he specifically, Kirsch calls these new aliens that he supposedly has never seen before Xenomorphs. How did he know to do that? Was it from data he downloaded from the Maginot? Because remember, he kind of did a similar thing to Morrow where he was scanning all the data from the ship. Did he learn it there? And if so, how did Weyland-Yutani know to call it that? Have they always been in touch with David on the Covenant planet to learn that? I don't know. Because remember, David, he was no longer loyal to Weyland at that point in time. That was back when it was just Weyland. It wasn't Weyland-Yutani. David hated Weyland. David hated humans in general. He wanted to kill them all. So I don't think he'd be willingly helping Weyland at that point in time. But it was curious that Kirsch knew to call them Xenomorphs. And he was able to deduce that they were a parasitic life form based on the fact that they have an egg. And he saw, chest burstings in the cryopods on the Maginot. So keep your eye on Kirsch. It just feels like he's got some David to him in terms of his artificial curiosity, if you will. All right, talked about Morrow's obsession with aliens, how Curly is probably going to start screwing with Wendy, or there's going to be some contention in the Lost Boy gang now that Curly has more or less said, hey, I'm better, I'm the best. Screw Wendy, she's number one, you should love me the most. The whole thing with Morrow implanting slightly, this is going to be fun to watch. Because I think Morrow will eventually wear slightly down, and that is going to be his in to get into Prodigy and somehow recoup all of Weyland's specimens. The interesting thing is going to be is what is Morrow going to do? Is Morrow going to take them for himself the way he's talking about how they are his life now, the Xenomorphs technically are his life? Or is he still committed to giving them over to Weyland? We kicked off this breakdown on Wendy's being severely affected by the screams of the facehuggers and the eggs. Why is that? Was it her interaction with the Xenomorph that got her hurt, or was it her physical build? Is there something about the hybrid process that has been able to connect her to these alien life forms? If that's the case, please tell us in-depthly why. If she is directly tied to Xenomorphs, how? Explain it. Explain your retcon is all I can really ask for. I think I said this, but just want to bring it up again. I love seeing the chest hugger tadpole or chest burster tadpole. We've never seen that. We've only seen the face hugger latch on, shoot its weenie down its host's throat, and then implant the tadpole, and then the tadpole grows into the burster. So I did kind of like that little lore nod, seeing it as a tadpole. And hey, what's it going to do with a lung? Is a lung enough to incubate it, to allow it to gestate into full form? That'll be interesting to see. I don't know. Does it just need the DNA? Does it just need human DNA, or does it need other parts of a human to fully gestate? So I think that'll be interesting to see, hopefully next week, how that pays off. And finally, to kind of close out some of this breakdown here, it seems, and I guess I need to go look this up, but it seems Noah Hawley is fully committed to ending with hard rock every episode, because this week we got Metallica's Wherever I May Roam to close things out as Wendy is passed out on what seems to be her dorm room floor, even though the show made it seem like she passed out in the lab. So was she envisioning the lab? Did she make it there? I like I said, I highly doubt she was in that room with Kirsch, Curly, and the other Lost Boy, and they didn't hear her fall over, if you know what I mean. So, all right. So other things to kind of talk about here when it comes to this episode. I think I mentioned most of the Easter eggs, but we got bioweapons line. Okay, that's been a Weyland-Yutani talking point about Xenos, I think, since Aliens, if not Alien. We got the cocooned rescue. Okay, Hermit got cocooned by a Xenomorph. We've seen them do that specifically in Aliens. We got to see some acid blood, which is clearly a callback to the Xenomorph and the facehugger's blood being acidic. We saw the synth blood. First time we saw that would have been Bishop. Now we got to see it from Wendy. It's still that, white creamy stuff. When Moro was talking to Yutani, you could still really feel that everything is company first, just like it was in Alien with, Ash and then Rook and Romulus, how they're be it a cyborg or a synthetic, if you work for Weyland Yutani or you made by Weyland Yutani, everything is for the corporation, right? There is no middle ground. It's all about your obligation, your contract to the corporation. And last one here, I feel like this was said twice, but I know Moro says it at least once when he's done talking to Slightly, but he says, don't let the bed bugs bite. And this is a clear line that is a direct callback to the end of Alien Covenant. Just as the female lead is being put into cryosleep by who she thinks is Walter the Synth, she realizes too late that it's actually David. And as David puts her to sleep, he says, don't let the bed bugs bite. So that was a clear nod to the end of Covenant, if anything. But the aliens themselves, the Xenos, I think really in Aliens, the movie, were also referred to as bugs. Okay, so that was a nice little callback there. All right, so that's what I got for my breakdown of Alien Earth Episode 3 Metamorphosis. I can't believe I've already gone for over an hour. We're going to start winding things down. But like I said, we're always going to have a crossover segment here on the Star Wars Time Show. There's always time for Star Wars Time. So even though we are actively breaking down Alien Earth Season 1, we're always going to have a crossover segment. So this week, our crossover is Xenomorphs in the Empire. In particular, kind of framing the Xenomorph as the Emperor's perfect weapon. All right, so here's the concept I want everyone to think about. And again, not having Nick here, this isn't going to be a very long debate because I'll just be debating with myself unless anyone in the live stream wants to get in the chat. But our crossover this week, I want you to think about, if Palpatine discovered the Xenomorph species, how would he weaponize them? All right, so if Palpatine, instead of Weyland Yutani or David, whoever you want to say, discovered the Xenomorphs, how would he weaponize them? All right, how would he wield them to his benefit? All right, so some of the things I thought about would, an easy thing to think about, and I don't know if he'd want to do this because it's like, how many, does he want to sacrifice planets? I guess yes. I mean, he's willing to blow planets up. We saw that with Alderaan, so he's got no problem wasting planets in his empire. But would he want to essentially forfeit a planet to Xenomorphs to ensure that it wiped out rebels? So, one thing he could do when he found the Xenomorphs is, let's say he takes them and unleashes them on, I don't know, Yavin 4, Naboo, a rebel world, a world that sympathizes with the Rebel Alliance. I mean, think about that. Would they think about that? I mean, instead of needing a super weapon, a Death Star, what if he just had you could have a battalion of Xenomorphs, and you could probably wipe out an entire rebel-controlled world. Because what's the Rebel Alliance going to do to a Xenomorph horde? What are they going to do? I mean, sure, they might be able to laser some of them. Maybe they can take off and shoot them from the sky, but they're ultimately probably going to have to level the planet if they escape. If they don't escape, the Xenomorphs are going to do exactly what they did to the colony in Aliens, and they're going to overrun it, and they're going to use the organics to keep growing. I mean, you got to remember, the Xenomorphs, they are parasites. Their whole existence is to keep reproducing, and to do that, they need more hosts. So if you drop them on a rebel world full of hosts, they are going to thrive. The question is, though, what would the Empire, what would Palpatine do after the rebels have been wiped out on this planet? It's not like you can just be like, oh, hey, come on, guys, blow a whistle and all your Xeno dogs come back to you. He would essentially have to either just cede the planet to the Xenomorphs and quarantine it, or Death Star it. You know what I mean? So I think if he used them in a sense where he was just unleashing them on planets, he would have to do so knowing that even if that planet had resources he wanted, it's pretty much a useless planet once he unleashes a Xeno horde to it to deal with his adversaries. You know, another thought I had thinking about if Palpatine discovered the Xenomorphs, how would he wield them or weaponize them? You know, think about it. He is a Sith. I know it's more of a Jedi thing to talk with beasts, be symbiotic with beasts. I mean, we know Ahsoka can do it real well. Ezra can do it real well. And you could argue maybe even Kanan. It's not necessarily a Sith strong suit to kind of interact with beasts or animals, but I still think they could do it. So what if Palpatine could just use the Force and control a hive of Xenomorphs to where they were more an extension of his thoughts? So my one scenario, like he would just dump them on a planet and let them do what they do. He wouldn't have much control outside of unleashing the Xenomorph Pandora's box. This other scenario, what would he do if he could control them through the dark side? What would that look like? Would he even need his war machines if he could control legions of Xenomorphs? Would he even need an apprentice? Would he need a Darth Vader? Would he need Luke Skywalker if he could mind control a hive of Xenomorphs? It's something to think about. Because to me, a Force user that has Force control over the galaxy's most dominant predator in the Xenomorph, you're unstoppable, right? They're at your whim, they're at your beck and call. You could do whatever you want. And it would be very intimidating. I mean, Palpatine was already intimidating, how he looked, how he worked, the decisions he'd make, the atrocities he would commit. But imagine if he was a beastmaster of a hive of Xenomorphs and what that would do to the galaxy. He ultimately could become a one-man empire, especially if he was rolling around on a Death Star that had its ports covered up. Because, I mean, let's be real, who's taking him out at that point? If he's on a Death Star that can blow up planets, but his warriors are Force-controlled Xenomorphs, let's go, right? Let's go. I think he wins today. And then we don't have to worry about somehow Palpatine returned and all that stupid shit that popped up in the sequel trilogy, because he would have never gone anywhere, because him and his Xeno horde would have won the day. The question is, if he had this Xeno horde and it's allowed to do it at once, would there be anything left to even rule over, and would he like that? Because it seemed to me like Palpatine, he liked the idea of ruling over the galaxy, ruling over people, telling them what to do, how to live, taking what he wanted when he wanted. I don't know if his little band of Xenos would give him that. All right, and kind of a last thought on this crossover segment. Again, we're just kind of chewing gum, spitting theories, just speculating what would happen if Palpatine discovered Xenomorphs. All right, how would he weaponize them? And the first idea was, just gather them up, dump them on a rebel planet, see what happens. Second was, let's try to get control over these beasts through the Force and then wield them, through your mind. And then this last one, let's think about this as fans. Which Star Wars era would make the best use out of Xenomorphs? The Old Republic, the Empire era, the First Order era. So, I mean, what do you think? I mean, I think probably Old Republic, because that's when you just had larger numbers of Force users. So, let's say you were a Sith back then, that would probably turn the tide against the Jedi armies if you had control of Xenomorphs. So I'm going with the Old Republic era would probably make the best use of them, just because of the sheer numbers of Force users during that era. I mean, they were everywhere. I mean, you could fill a battlefield with the Jedi and the Sith, and they'd go at it. So I think it'd be kind of fun to see the Jedi or the Sith wielding a battalion of Xenomorphs for their cause. All right, yeah, League's going with me on Old Republic there. All right, so that kind of wraps our crossover, but we're going to do this all season long for Alien Earth. We're always going to do our breakdown, then we'll have some random crossover to talk about, to kind of, you know, splice in some Star Wars into the Star Wars Time show. There's some other ones I've kind of got in mind, kind of like thinking about clones plus hybrids, or they're essentially clones. You know, what does that mean? Using Xenomorphs for the Jedi trials, that's a potential crossover. You know, the Hive Queens versus Night Sisters, what would go on there? The concept of Rogue One, but using Xenomorphs as the defense. So, hey, we're trying. There's always time for Star Wars time. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to start wrapping this episode up. And as we always do, to close out the show, we have a fan segment. There's two ways to get involved. First up is the question of the week. So we'll put out a question of the week, soliciting responses. As long as you respond, we'll read it live on this segment. You can tell I've been talking too much by myself. My brain's starting to sputter out. So bear with me here, friends. So let's go see what the fans had to say. So this week I was asking them about what they, or how they think Palpatine would weaponize Xenomorphs. All right, so let's see what they had to say. Got a few clicks of a button. All right, now we're ready to rock. So again, question of the week. All you got to do, be following our socials, look for the post, and respond accordingly. How would Palpatine weaponize the Xenomorphs? All right, not a lot of responses because I had to do the show a bit earlier today, but we did get a few, and some of them are quite funny, like our first one. So our good friend here, one of the Fandos, League of Extraordinary Sixers, replied with a, damn it, what was this guy called? From Austin Powers. What was the bad guy called? Man, I am getting so bad with my pop culture regurgitation these days. What was the bad guy called? Dr. Evil. How could I forget that? Jeez. Like I said, I need to stop doing certain things in my life. But yeah, she's got a great image of Dr. Evil there stroking his naked cat when answering how would Palpatine weaponize them. And I think what League is saying is, yeah, he would embrace them. They would become his pets. And he would most definitely appreciate giving them love and then unleashing their special brand of love against his adversaries. Man, I can't believe I could not remember Dr. Evil. All right, up next we have from Veer_Melior1 on Instagram. He literally wrote a book called The Creation of Monsters, a part of the Dark Side Compendium. I'm guessing he'd make them Drass for cis spawns. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Listen, I don't know where that came from. I'm guessing maybe the Plagueis novels. I've never heard that for Palpatine, maybe the comics. That doesn't matter. But in the end, we know from canon, the Clone Wars, and then in Bad Batch, Palpatine wanted the Zillo Beast. He wanted to experiment on the Zillo Beast to potentially use its impervious skin as armor for clones, or maybe armor for Sith clones. So yeah, I like where Veer Melior is going here. 2797_studios gave me a gif of Palpatine's unlimited power. So yeah, I think what 27 is saying there is he would definitely see them as more of his unlimited power and unleash the hell they provide on his enemies. We have star_wars_fan_art_es saying, the next thing Moff Gideon wanted to do was mix Grogu blood with Xenomorph acid to create Palpatine clone. They would be invincible. I don't know where that's coming from, but I'm down. Why not? You know, I've always said that due to a comic I read a few years back that had a Xenomorph skull and a Predator mask in a museum on Coruscant, that these franchises are all in the same galaxy anyway. So sure, Grogu blood, so Force blood with Xenomorph acid blood. I would love to see what that comes up with. In fact, maybe that's a crossover segment I'm going to write down right now. You know, what would a Grogu Xeno hybrid look like, and what would their powers be? Okay, all right. So good one there. Star Wars fan art ES, way to go. And then League with the last one here. Probably use them as a Horde battalion on the field, very much like troopers. Yeah, so similar to one of my ideas, just kind of unleash them as a battalion of destruction. All right, that's question of the week. Don't forget, if you want to get involved, make sure you're following us on Instagram, StarWarsTime.show, YouTube, Star Wars Time Show, TikTok, Star Wars Time Show. I believe we're on Twitter or whatever it's called these days. So just look for it. I even put it on YouTube. You know, if you're a YouTube subscriber or a member of the channel, you'll see that in our YouTube community. Okay, so to fully close things out, I'm going to do my own version of Nick's top 5. Okay, Nick usually picks 5 of his favorite artists' work from the week. He pulls these from Instagram, use the tag hashtag Star Wars Time Show, but more importantly, do ad tag at StarWarsTime.show. That way we can see them in our tag posts, and that's where Nick picks his top 5. But since he was out this week, I got to pick them myself. So here we go. And again, I took these from the ad tag section of StarWarsTime.show. So up first, we got a great looking shot here from, I think it's a new account that's been hitting us up. Yeah, it is a new account. It is Meridian Turtle HT. I like it. Meridian Turtle HT. At first, I thought this was a shot from Coleccionista_de Plastico because the style is very similar. What we see, if you're not on the stream here, we've got Darth Vader and the Kenobi series Kenobi Hot Toys dueling, and it's a very well lit shot, and it like I said, it feels very collectionista because it's low light. There's not really a background that's all bokeh up. It's just lit to highlight the two characters, and they really do look great. I love this shot from Meridian Turtle HT on Instagram, so go ahead and give them a follow if you will. Next up, we featured this artist before during the top 5, and this is The Great Spartan Figures. And this is a great little action scene they've created. Looks a little bit Digirama based, so I think the background's digital and the foreground's all practical. But he's got Cad Bane on it looks like a clone trooper ship or a clone trooper barrack, something like that. And he's just waylaying clones left and right. And the best part about this shot is the way Cad is posed. And he's got his hat like fully tilted over his eyes, so you can't even see his eyes in the shot, but he's got both his guns to the side, blown away. Some clones with other clones dead at his feet. So good looking action scene here from The Great Spartan Figures on Instagram. Don't forget to sub to the channel if you're not already subbed. And if you want to get some extra perks, consider becoming an SWTS channel member right down there below. All right, next up in our top 5, we've got On Golden Ponda Baba, one of my favorite handles out there, an artist we've definitely featured before. And what they shot for us here, my friends, is the full color Ronin. So if you remember Star Wars Vision, one of the shorts was the black and white one with the Ronin. He was very awesome looking. Earlier this year, we got a black and white, a grayscale version of the Ronin in figure form. Now we have a full color version, and that's what On Golden Ponda Baba is showing off. And it's just a really well captured portrait of this figure, and I do agree with On Golden Ponda Baba. The full color Ronin may be better than this version right here. Okay, so there's the grayscale. This is the Ronin for those that may not be in the know. All right, so great work here from On Golden Ponda Baba, and like I said, a fantastic handle. Moving right along, up next in our top 5, you know I had to do it. You know, we've crossed over into Alien franchise territory, and so has the toy community. Toy photography, we love it over here, but we feature any sort of Star Wars art. It doesn't just have to be toy photography. But this one from DeMarco on Instagram is toy photography, and what we see is Bo-Katan with the Darksaber hacking away at a Xenomorph, a properly incubated Xenomorph. It's a big one. There's green blood splashing everywhere. I love those effects that DeMarco put in. And all I know, Bo is not wearing her helmet. So she better watch out for the acid blood spray, because I don't know if we figured out last week. Could alien blood eat through Beskar, or does it block Beskar just like it can block a lightsaber? You would think if it can block light that can cut through anything, it should be able to block a little bit of alien blood, but you never know. Either way, great looking action shot from the Marco over on Instagram. And last but not least, to close out this week's top 5, we got a fantastic creation from Brian's _ toy chest. And essentially it is what is called a Boba Fett alternate movie poster that this artist created using Hot Toys figures. And if you look at this image, even if you listen to this show on podcast, go to Brian's _ toy chest on Instagram and check out this poster. It is absolutely boss level work. And to think that these are action figures, it's even crazier. I don't think Kersantin is, and the Hutts aren't. Clearly, they're not action figures, but every other character in here, I believe, is an action figure, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. We'll scroll through here so you can kind of see some of the more up-close parts of the poster. Just fantastic work, and you know, it would be cool if this was a season 2 poster for the Book of Boba Fett, because why not? There's always time for Star Wars time. Even though the Book of Boba Fett wasn't as hardcore excellent as we all anticipated, it's still decent Star Wars, and I'm all about seeing Mandalorians and bounty hunters get their thing on, if you know what I mean. All right, my friends, I did it. Made it through the solo show here. Oh, storyteller. Sorry, I had to go early today because I've got a colonoscopy prep this evening and Nick's out of town. But it's good that you came in. Unfortunately, it's right at the end, so I would love for you to stick around or rewatch it once I end the live here. But we did have a bit of a random broadcast today. So we'll be getting back to the evenings next week. Like I said, just to close things out here, we are having a fundamental schedule shift moving forward. So next week, I anticipate the show now starting about 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and it's going to be me. So I'll be handling Ask Me Anything and Pop Culture Talk, and then hopefully by 8 Eastern time, Nick will dial in, he'll call in, and we'll cover the big stuff. So that hopefully should cut down on the length of our show. I know sometimes 2 hours is a lot for people. It's a lot for me, a lot for Nick. But the plan next week is to start around 7:30 and hopefully go to about 9 p.m. East. Hopefully not much further than 9:30 p. East next week. So next week will be the first time that we're going to move the live to prime time. So I'd love for everyone to join in. It won't be during the day, so if you work or you're in school, you should have no excuse not to join right when we go live next week. But keep your eyes on our socials for the announcements. I'll probably be putting them out next Monday or Tuesday. We'll be covering Alien Earth Episode 4 for sure, and then I'll have another Alien Star Wars crossover segment. It's good seeing you right there at the end, Storyteller. Thanks again, League, for sticking through the whole thing. No opinion. Nice seeing you drop in. Hot Sauce, not sure if you're still there, but it's good seeing you too. Hopefully you all consider giving the channel a scrub. All right, everyone. As we always like to close this show out, there's always time for Star Wars time. And if you listen to the Star Wars Time show, even if it's just me, the Force and the Xenomorph will be with you always.